Recently, I came across a couple of videos of what seemed like a small indie game. I'd seen games like this before as I went through my RPG Maker phase, and so I really didn't think much of it, but then I saw this. I instantly went and bought this game, for the same reason that I think most others did. It looks like something straight from Berserk, dark, unforgiving and unfair. So far, the game has exceeded my expectations. For some background, Fear and Hunger is a dark fantasy survival horror game released in late 2018. Based in an alternate Europe in a world stricken with war and tainted by the influence of cruel old gods. The game explores the desire of humanity to pursue these gods both in worship and to be noticed, ultimately even to try to rise to their level, discovering just the cost such an endeavor would require. And you wouldn't necessarily get that impression early on. You see, the game doesn't have an awful lot to it. You run around an old prison, delving further into the darkest recesses until you forget why you even came here in the first place, and suddenly you find yourself in an ancient city equivalent to Babylon, killing old gods and new alike for the chance to ascend yourself. It's quite a trip, but what makes it so appealing? Everyone's first impression of the game will be with its visuals, and Fear and Hunger really excels at creating an atmosphere that permeates every corner of its world. The game design combines various elements that bring forward that sense of dread, hopelessness and unease to create a truly unsettling experience. The visual design of Fear and Hunger is haunting, featuring grotesque imagery and environments that are meticulously crafted, showcasing decaying dungeons, twisted landscapes and eerie corridors using dark, desaturated colours. The odd thing is that there are many games that attempt to do the exact same thing, so what makes this one any different? I personally think this is where RPG Maker shines, because there's something so eerie and uncanny about the pixel art that's used that, for me, makes it so much more unsettling than any other game. The sound design also plays a really important part in creating the foundations of this world, from areas only being accompanied by atmospheric noises like the odd drips of water or slow footsteps at the end of a corridor, to whatever the fuck this is supposed to be. Although the remix of this boss music in Termina is really good. In games like these, where your visuals are often obscured and your mind can't really make sense of anything, the sound becomes a whole character in and of itself, one that you rely on to navigate the hellscape you find yourself in. Through the game's narrative, Fear and Hunger goes even further into the realms of psychological horror. The game explores the darkest corners of the human psyche, portraying madness, trauma, and the profound effects that they can have on the characters and the players alike. Fear and Hunger presents a chilling portrayal of madness and psychological instability. Characters encountered throughout the game exhibit various forms of mental deterioration. More than that, there is an attempt to question players on whether or not it's better to look away or stare deeper into the abyss. It's important to note that the darkness experienced around you in the game is just a reflection on the nature of humanity itself. We're capable of profound thought and rationality, but simultaneously, and maybe just as importantly, carry with us a great potential for savagery and rage. From what I gather, the game challenges you not to shy away from such feelings, as in doing so you repress a natural side of yourself, allowing it to fester and eventually mutate you entirely. Humanity cannot escape its darker urges, and that's an absolute. Whatever you do with that information is really just up to you. Do you keep the girl safe, or do you sell her for a sweet claymore to the cat guy? The game prompts introspection and raises philosophical questions about morality, identity, and the nature of humanity itself. Termina even takes this a step further, progressing from the ideas brought about by Freud into the evolution of Carl Jung. We see players and characters face the consequences of embracing or suppressing the shadow, offering opportunities for players to confront their own fears and examine the consequences of their choices. In the end, the moon reveals all. More than bloody horror and brutal murder, this is where the true terror resides, and many forms of media forget just how important it is to get its audience to question their own nature. The story across these two games deserve videos of their own, and there are channels who have done it far better than I ever could, and really for me it's the least interesting part of the game. All of the unknown stuff that we fill in with our own minds in between, that's where the real excitement lies. My personal favourite story, however, is Darcy's from the first game, as she's a loyal knight dedicated to a man who could never love her back. She ventures into the horrors without hesitation, but in the end fails entirely. But of course, with Fear and Hunger, stories don't just stop there. She progresses into the City of Gods and finds out how to revive her fallen hero, which leads to my favourite image in the whole series. Anyway, I just wanted to make a short video singing this game's praises. But just before I do finish, I wanted to mention that one of the game's biggest aspects that you'll probably hear about is the difficulty, and it is brutal. Limited items are standard of every survival horror game, but in this one you can only save so much, and even that can depend on the flip of a coin, and believe me, you do not want to fail that coin flip. But if you don't let the difficulty put you off, you'll end up being rewarded with one of the most interesting horror games to come out since Silent Hill 2. So I really do urge anyone that has an interest in Silent Hill, the classic Resident Evils, and just horror as a whole to check this game out. It's really worth it.